My elder son's girlfriend dumped him after hearing my innocent dating advice to his brother. He then completely destroyed our entire family and launched a harassment campaign against us. My youngest son Ethan just turned 18 last weekend. We had a small family celebration at my place with cake, presents, and some video games. My daughter Lisa, 22F, was there, along with my oldest son Jake, 25M, and his now ex-girlfriend Mia. After we finished cake, Ethan started browsing through the new games I, 49M, got him, Elden Ring and Legend of Zelda. He mentioned he was planning to ask out a girl from his class now that he was officially an adult. Lisa and Mia were playing Mario Kart on the couch, trash-talking each other about blue shells and shortcuts. When Ethan mentioned asking a girl out, I decided it might be a good time for some fatherly advice. He's always been a bit shy around girls, and I wanted to help him avoid some common mistakes. I sat down next to him while he was setting up his new games and started giving him some pointers about dating. I told him that listening is the most important part of dating. Not just hearing words, but really trying to understand what she's saying. I explained that when a girl tells you something bothers her, you need to take it seriously even if it doesn't seem like a big deal to you. If she says something hurts, it hurts, regardless of whether you can see the problem. To lighten the mood, I told him about my own father's advice to me. My dad once told me that true love is when she's comfortable enough to blame you for her farts. Ethan laughed at that, and even Lisa shouted from the couch that Grandpa always had the weirdest sayings. Lisa paused her game and added her own advice, suggesting he take his date to the new VR arcade downtown or maybe the drive-in theater that just reopened. She warned him not to take a girl to a regular movie on a first date because they wouldn't be able to talk and get to know each other. During all this, I noticed Jake had walked in from the kitchen. He had a strange look on his face, like he was trying to smile but couldn't quite manage it. Mia was sitting stiffly on the couch next to Lisa, arms crossed, not really looking at anyone. The party ended shortly after that. Jake and Mia left first, then Lisa drove Ethan home. I didn't think much about it at the time, just cleaned up and went to bed. 2 days later, Lisa called me. She told me that Mia had broken up with Jake the night after the birthday party. According to Lisa, who had become good friends with Mia over the past year, there had been problems brewing for months. Mia complained that Jake dismissed her opinions, never really listened to her concerns, and just waited for his turn to talk instead of engaging with what she was saying. Before I could process this information, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. He wanted to come over immediately. I agreed, thinking he probably needed some support after the breakup. When he arrived, he didn't even wait to get inside the house. Standing on my porch, he started shouting about how I had ruined everything with my stupid advice. I pulled him inside, not wanting to create a scene in the neighborhood. We ended up in the garage where I was in the middle of organizing my tools. Jake accused me of deliberately undermining his relationship by giving contradictory advice to Ethan right in front of Mia. He claimed that Mia had used my advice points as a checklist of everything he was doing wrong. According to him, I had given her ammunition to use against him. I tried to explain that the advice wasn't aimed at him at all, it was for Ethan who was just starting to date. I had no idea there were problems in his relationship. Jake wouldn't listen, just kept pacing around the garage, kicking at empty boxes. Then he dropped the bomb. He wanted to post about me on Reddit, on one of those judgment forums, to prove to me that I was the problem. He wanted strangers to confirm that I had sabotaged his relationship. I told him that was ridiculous and asked him to sit down so we could talk about what really happened with Mia. He refused and stormed out, slamming the door so hard that one of my shelves rattled, sending a box of screws cascading across the floor. I spent the next hour picking up screws and wondering where I had gone wrong. Jake was 25 years old, not a teenager anymore. This reaction seemed extreme, especially for someone who had been in what I thought was a serious relationship for almost 2 years. I decided to talk to Lisa again to get more information. She revealed that Mia had confided in her about multiple issues in the relationship. Apparently, Jake expected Mia to take care of all household chores in their shared apartment, even though they both worked full-time. He had been pressuring her to turn down a prestigious apprenticeship offer in Denver because he didn't want to move from our current city. Even more concerning, Lisa mentioned that Jake had been watching certain online personalities known for their controversial views about women and relationships. Names like Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate came up, personalities I vaguely recognized from news articles about their misogynistic content. This all came as a shock to me. I had raised my children alone after their mother Karen passed away 12 years ago. I'd always tried to model respect and equal partnership. Karen and I had our own little routines and inside jokes, like our magic coffee cup tradition where whoever woke up first would make coffee for the other. It was never about servitude, it was about caring for each other. The next day, I decided to visit Jake at his apartment. His roommate Tim hesitated before letting me in, looking uncomfortable about the whole situation. Jake was surprised to see me but allowed me into his room. We talked for hours. He explained his side of things, how he felt Mia didn't respect his traditional views on relationships, how she was selfish for wanting to pursue her career in another city, how I had always favored Lisa and Ethan over him. When I questioned him about these online personalities he'd been following, he became defensive, claiming they just told the truth about how the world really works. He genuinely believed that women should handle all household work while men were the providers, despite the fact that both he and Mia worked similar hours. I reminded him about Karen and my relationship, how we shared responsibilities based on what each of us was good at. She couldn't make my grandmother's pecan pie to save her life, and I completely failed at her family's spicy kimchi stew recipe. We complemented each other rather than falling into rigid gender roles. By the end of our conversation, I told Jake bluntly that he needed to grow up. Mia hadn't left him because of my advice, she'd left because he wasn't treating her as an equal partner. I suggested he might benefit from talking to a professional about these views he'd adopted, but he dismissed the idea immediately. As I was leaving, Jake asked me not to tell Lisa and Ethan about our conversation. Despite everything, I could see he was embarrassed. I gave him a quick hug, the first physical contact we'd had in years, and promised to keep it between us. That night, I lay awake wondering if I had somehow failed Jake as a father. Had I not been clear enough about respect in relationships? Had I somehow sheltered him too much from real-world interactions? Whatever the case, I realized this was something he would need to work through himself. All I could do was be there when he was ready to listen. Update 1. It has been 3 weeks since the big argument with Jake. Many things have changed, and not for the better. I wanted to update everyone because the situation has taken some unexpected turns. About a week after our confrontation, Lisa invited me for coffee. She seemed nervous, constantly stirring her latte without drinking it. Eventually, she admitted that she had been in contact with Mia more frequently since the breakup. They had become close friends over the past year, bonding over their mutual interest in photography and hiking. Lisa revealed that Mia had been keeping a journal of incidents where Jake had dismissed her opinions or made her feel insignificant. The list was extensive, dating back almost 6 months. Things like interrupting her during conversations, making decisions without consulting her, and dismissing her career ambitions as temporary until they started a family. The most shocking revelation was about the apprenticeship in Denver. The position would have doubled Mia's current salary and provided specialized training in her field. When she brought it up with Jake, he apparently told her that if she took the job, it meant she didn't really love him. He presented it as an ultimatum rather than trying to find a compromise. Lisa also mentioned that Mia's family had deep roots in our city, with parents, grandparents, and extended family all living within a half-hour drive. The decision to leave for Denver had been agonizing for Mia, torn between career advancement and family ties. Jake's reaction had only made it harder. As Lisa was telling me all this, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. He sent me a screenshot of a social media post Jake had made, vaguely referencing family betrayal and how the ones who should support you the most are often the first to stab you in the back. Jake had tagged both Lisa and me in the comments, though not directly in the post itself. Later that same day, Ethan called to tell me that Jake had been messaging him, trying to convince him that I was a bad father who gave toxic advice and didn't understand how the real world works for men these days. Ethan, confused by this sudden campaign against me, had initially tried to defend me but eventually just stopped responding to his brother's messages. The situation escalated when Tim contacted me. He seemed hesitant to get involved but felt concerned enough to reach out. According to Tim, Jake had been spending most of his time in his room, watching videos and participating in online forums focused on male empowerment. Tim overheard phone conversations where Jake described Mia as manipulative and using feminist talking points to control him. Most disturbingly, Tim mentioned that Jake had been talking about creating multiple social media accounts to expose both Mia and our family for betraying him. Tim feared this might cross into harassment territory and wanted me to be aware. I decided to visit Jake again, this time unannounced. When I arrived at his apartment, the scene was worse than I expected. His normally tidy room was cluttered with takeout containers and unwashed clothes. His laptop was open to a forum where he was actively posting about family betrayal and female manipulation tactics. Jake was not happy to see me. Our conversation quickly devolved into an argument when I mentioned that I knew about his messages to Ethan. Jake accused me of spying on him and turning Lisa and Ethan against him. When I brought up Mia's career opportunity, he dismissed it as just an excuse to leave him. During our heated discussion, Jake revealed something that caught me completely off guard. He claimed that he had seen me checking out Mia multiple times during family gatherings, and that I had deliberately given advice that would sabotage their relationship because I was jealous of him. This accusation was so absurd that I initially thought he was joking. When I realized he was serious, I simply got up to leave. As I reached the door, Jake shouted that he had already posted about me on Reddit and that everyone agreed I was in the wrong. He claimed hundreds of people had confirmed that my advice was outdated and that a real man wouldn't undermine his son. Tim, who had overheard everything from the living room, gave me an apologetic look as I left. He whispered that he was looking for another place to live because the atmosphere had become too toxic. On my drive home, Lisa called. She was upset because Jake had contacted her boss at the marketing firm where she works, claiming that she had been harassing Mia and stealing her away as a friend. Fortunately, her boss recognized this as a personal dispute and didn't take it seriously, but Lisa was understandably shaken by the attempt to jeopardize her professional reputation. That evening, I received a long email from Jake. Unlike his heated accusations earlier in the day, the email was coldly calculated. He listed every perceived slight I had committed against him since his childhood, times when I allegedly favored Lisa and Ethan, instances when I undermined his decisions, and moments when I supposedly failed to support him. The email ended with an ultimatum: either I publicly apologize for giving relationship-destroying advice in front of Mia and admit to intentionally sabotaging his relationship, or he would cut off all contact with me and make sure Lisa and Ethan knew the truth about what kind of father I really was. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I called Ethan and warned him that Jake might try to turn him against me or Lisa. I emphasized that he should form his own opinions based on his personal experiences with us, not based on Jake's current narrative. The next day, I learned from Lisa that Mia had accepted the apprenticeship in Denver and would be moving in 2 weeks. She had been hesitant to tell anyone connected to Jake because she feared further confrontation or guilt tripping. Lisa planned to help her pack and drive with her to Denver as a show of support. Meanwhile, Jake began posting more frequently on social media, with thinly veiled references to disloyal family members and manipulative women. Several mutual friends contacted me, concerned about his increasingly bitter and antagonistic online presence. By the end of the week, Jake had blocked me, Lisa, Ethan, and apparently most of our extended family on all social media platforms and messaging apps. Tim informed me that Jake had started looking for a new apartment, wanting to get away from everyone connected to his past. As it stands now, our family remains fractured. Jake has effectively cut himself off from us. I've tried reaching out through various channels, but he has blocked every attempt at communication. Lisa and Ethan are confused and hurt by their brother's sudden hostility, especially Ethan, who had always looked up to Jake. I'm left wondering if there were signs I missed over the years, indications that Jake was developing these concerning views about relationships and family loyalty. For now, all I can do is support Lisa and Ethan and hope that with time, Jake will be willing to have an honest conversation about what's really driving this behavior. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and the situation with Jake has developed in ways I never expected. I've hesitated to write this update because parts of it still don't seem real to me, but I think it's important to share what's happened. About 3 weeks after my previous update, Lisa called me in tears. She had received multiple messages from accounts she didn't recognize on various social media platforms. All the messages contained screenshots from a private group where Jake had been posting about our family. The screenshots included fabricated stories about me being abusive during his childhood, claims that Karen, before she passed, had been planning to leave me, and accusations that Lisa was sleeping with Mia. These messages were being sent to her coworkers, friends, and even clients of the marketing firm where she works. Someone had clearly gone through her professional contacts list to find these connections. Lisa was devastated, not just by the content of the messages but by the potential damage to her professional reputation. Around the same time, Ethan reported that several of his friends had received similar messages, along with warnings not to trust our family. His school counselor even called him in for a meeting after receiving an anonymous email expressing concern about his home life. I was stunned by the escalation. This went far beyond a simple family disagreement or even the aftermath of a bad breakup. This was a coordinated attempt to damage our reputations and isolate us from our social circles. After consulting with Lisa, we decided to document everything and report the harassment to the platforms involved. We also reached out to Tim, who confirmed that Jake had been working on something big to expose us but wouldn't share details. Then came the most shocking development. Karen's sister, Aunt Sarah, contacted me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken much since Karen's passing, as Sarah lived across the country and had her own busy life. She told me that Jake had reached out to her with a disturbing story about finding evidence that I had somehow been responsible for Karen's illness not being detected earlier. This was not only completely false but an especially cruel accusation given how painful Karen's battle with cancer had been for our entire family. Sarah was skeptical of these claims, which is why she called me directly. She remembered how devoted I had been to Karen during her illness, rarely leaving her side during hospital stays and taking on both parenting roles while she underwent treatment. The idea that I would have delayed or interfered with her medical care was absurd to anyone who knew us. What troubled me most was that Jake was now involving Karen's memory in this campaign against me. Her illness and death had been devastating for all of us, but particularly for Jake as he was entering his teenage years when she passed. We had all gone through grief counseling together, and I thought we had processed that trauma as well as could be expected. I decided it was time to confront this situation more directly. With help from Lisa, I compiled all the evidence of the harassment campaign. Then I reached out to Tim again and requested a meeting. Tim agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near their apartment. He looked exhausted and admitted that living with Jake had become increasingly difficult. According to him, Jake had become obsessed with getting justice against our family and Mia. He rarely left his room except to go to work, and even that was becoming irregular. Most concerningly, Tim revealed that Jake had been meeting with members of an online group that advocated for extreme views on male-female relationships. These weren't just online interactions anymore, they were meeting in person, and Tim had overheard discussions about tactics to expose feminist lies and hold disloyal people accountable. I asked if Tim thought Jake might be dangerous to himself or others. He hesitated before admitting that while he hadn't heard specific threats, the intensity of Jake's anger worried him. He had given notice on their apartment and would be moving out in 2 weeks, unable to handle the toxic atmosphere any longer. Armed with this information, I made what was probably the hardest decision of my life. I contacted a lawyer to discuss options for dealing with the harassment. The lawyer advised that we had enough evidence for a potential restraining order, especially given the targeted messages to Lisa's professional contacts. Before taking that step, I tried one last time to reach Jake. I sent him an email from a new address, since he had blocked my regular one, laying out exactly what I knew about his harassment campaign and the potential legal consequences if it continued. I made it clear that while I would always love him as my son, I would not allow him to harm Lisa and Ethan's reputations and mental well-being. To my surprise, Jake responded the next day. His email was short and cold: "Do what you need to do. You're not my family anymore." With a heavy heart, I proceeded with the restraining order process. The court granted temporary orders protecting myself, Lisa, and Ethan, based on the evidence of coordinated harassment. When the papers were served, Jake finally called me. The conversation was brief and painful. He claimed he was the real victim of my favoritism, of Mia's betrayal, and of a society that doesn't value traditional male roles. When I brought up Karen and how hurt she would be to see our family torn apart like this, he hung up. The following week, Lisa learned from mutual friends that Jake had quit his job and was planning to move to another state. He had apparently connected with members of his online group who lived there and offered him a place to stay. Meanwhile, Mia was thriving in her apprenticeship in Denver. Lisa visited her recently and reported that she looked happier and more confident than she had in the entire time she was with Jake. She had even met someone new, though the relationship was just beginning. As for Ethan, the entire situation has been confusing and painful. He lost the brother he looked up to, right as he was entering adulthood himself. But there has been one positive outcome: he's been much more thoughtful about his approach to dating and relationships. The advice I gave him at his birthday party, which inadvertently sparked this whole situation, seems to have made an impact. He recently went on his first date with the girl from his class, taking her to that VR arcade Lisa had suggested. According to him, they had a great time because they could talk and laugh while playing the games. For now, our family remains fractured. The restraining orders are in place, and Jake has made no attempt to reconcile or even acknowledge the harm he's caused. I'm left wondering how things went so wrong, and whether there's any path back to the family we once were. Update 3, it's been over 8 months since this all began, and I wanted to provide what will likely be my final update on this situation. Much has changed, though not necessarily in the ways I had hoped. About 3 months ago, Jake moved across the country to live with some people he met through his online groups. We learned this through Tim, who has stayed in occasional contact with Lisa. According to Tim, Jake left town suddenly, selling or giving away most of his possessions and taking only what would fit in his car. The restraining orders expired last month, and we chose not to renew them since there had been no further harassment or contact from Jake. The distance, both physical and emotional, seems to have cooled his campaign against us. Lisa graduated from her master's program 2 months ago and has been promoted at the marketing firm where she works. She and Mia remain close friends. Mia completed her apprenticeship and was offered a permanent position with the company in Denver. She's still dating the person she met after moving there, and according to Lisa, they're talking about moving in together soon. Ethan started college this fall. The experience with Jake has affected him deeply. He recently told me that watching what happened made him more aware of how easily people can be influenced by extreme ideologies online. He's even writing a paper for his psychology class about radicalization in online spaces, using his observations of Jake's transformation as a case study, with names changed, of course. As for me, I've been trying to understand how Jake went from the sweet, thoughtful boy I raised to someone capable of such targeted harassment toward his own family. I've read books and articles about these online male-focused movements, trying to comprehend the appeal they hold for young men like Jake. About a month ago, I received a postcard with no return address. It was postmarked from the state where Jake relocated. There was no message, just a picture of the state's famous landmark. I took it as a small sign that perhaps he thinks of us sometimes, though he's still not ready for actual communication. I did make one attempt to reach out directly. On Jake's birthday, I sent a card to the address Tim provided. I kept the message simple, just that I loved him and the door would always be open when he was ready to talk. I have no idea if he received it or what his reaction might have been if he did. The most difficult part of all this has been explaining the situation to extended family. Karen's parents are elderly now, and they've asked about their oldest grandson several times. I've tried to be honest without sharing the most painful details. They already lost their daughter. The thought of losing a connection with her child as well is particularly hard for them. Lisa, Ethan, and I have grown closer through this ordeal. We have a standing Sunday dinner tradition now, where they come over and we cook together, something we didn't do regularly before. Sometimes they bring friends, and the house feels full again in a way it hasn't since Karen was alive. There are moments when something happens, a joke that would have made Jake laugh, a movie he would have enjoyed, a milestone he's missing, and his absence hits us all over again. Lisa still occasionally checks his social media profiles, though he created new ones after cutting ties with us. From what little we can see, He appears to have fully embraced the ideology of these groups, posting content that would have been completely out of character for the person we knew. Last week, Lisa asked if I thought Jake would ever come back to us. I told her honestly that I don't know. People can change, but they have to want to change. Right now, he's found a community that reinforces his worldview and likely provides him with a sense of belonging and purpose, however misguided. For our part, we've had to accept that we can't force reconciliation. We can leave the door open, but Jake has to choose to walk through it. We've also had to acknowledge that if he did return, it wouldn't be the same as before. Too much has been said and done. Trust has been broken on both sides. So we continue with our lives, carrying this open wound that doesn't quite heal but becomes more manageable with time. I still check my phone when it rings, part of me always hoping it might be Jake. I keep a photo of all 3 children on my nightstand, taken the Christmas before Karen died, when we were still complete. Ethan asked me recently if I regretted giving him that dating advice on his birthday, knowing now what it would trigger. I told him no. The advice was sound. Relationships should be built on mutual respect, active listening, and genuine care for your partner's feelings. If sharing those values cost me my relationship with Jake, then perhaps that relationship was already built on shakier ground than I realized.